next 35 minutes, it's going to be Ray and a few featured CEOs. So hang with us, and Ray Watson from CEO Nexus, CEO and peer group leader extraordinaire.
Okay, if I could have Glenn and Ken come up. And then move you out a little bit. Yeah, George, drag that other chair over there. Okay, what we're going to talk about here and try to wrap up, again, we're standing between you and lunch, right, so we're trying to keep it a little lively here, is that on the screen up here are some tools that you can physically use to have more impact on your business. And I've worked with Ken and worked with Glenn over the years, and they use some or all of these tools, and I can tell you their businesses are better for it. And so I'm going to kind of interface with them as we talk a little bit about some of these tools, but first I might just ask each of them to take a minute and tell you about their company and kind of how the evolution of their company. So Ken, if you don't mind.
Ken Croston, company is World Class Installations, but we're currently undergoing a rebranding to Electronic Locksmith, so that's not officially done yet, but will be soon. We work with electronic locks supplied to the hotel industry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm with New You Trust, and we're a company that's a little odd. It's hard to describe what we do. We're like a bank. We're like a bank for your retirement plan. So when you move it onto our platform, you get to choose from everything the IRS doesn't prohibit in your investments, which is very, very broad. But most people tell you about stocks, bonds, mutual funds. Most of our clients do private investments, real estate, notes, mortgages, tax liens, all the kind of fun stuff you get to do. You do it on our platform. So we've been at it for about 15 years, and we're about $1 billion of client assets right now.
Very good. What you see on the screen up here is a list of tools, and many of you in the audience, as well as these guys, have used some or all of them to the better of their business. So very quickly, you've heard about Traction EOS, which is a set of tools designed to bring some real clarity, focus, discipline, and accountability to your organization. Gallup talks about employee engagement. You hear about that a lot. In terms of engaged employees or more productive employees, but only about 30% of employees are really engaged in what they do. Ownership thinking, this is about getting employees to think as much like an owner as possible. And I'll talk a little bit about that as we go through it. Predictive index and some other tools out there are the ability to assess behaviors of people and cognitive skills so that you can get the right behaviors in the right seats, not just their skills and experience. And then other leadership reading type things is what we try to do in our groups. I run CEO groups. These guys are in a couple of them. Is to really keep up on investing in yourself and advancing your leadership skills, management skills, etc. So the first thing I want to talk about, we're kind of in a world of entitlement thinking. I can kind of see this myself because my grandkids are involved in flag football over in Oviedo. And whether they win first place or last place, they get a trophy, right? Well, if you're running a business, if you finish last, you're not getting a trophy. So we have perpetuated somewhat this entitlement thinking. I know we've got some younger folks in the room, but it's obviously more prevalent among millennials or younger folks. Why? Because probably the growing up has had a different influence. I know my wife is far more of a helicopter grandma than she was a mother to my kids. So, I mean, she doesn't want them out of her sight. So you're really that entitlement overcoming, what's been ingrained over the years. So score's not kept. In other words, we don't measure what is effective to making our business more effective. And a lot of times expectations are unrealistic. So how do you as an owner think? I would say that probably some of these items listed up here is what you think about every day. You want to think about profitability. You want to think about attracting, retaining employees, all those sort of things. Now, how many of you in here, I'm going to show the next slide as to what probably employees think about. Do you think there might be a difference? No. This is how employees think, typically. They want their paycheck, they want benefits, et cetera, et cetera. But it's not aligned necessarily what you you as an owner think about. It's what's important to them, which is understandable. You want to try to bring those together. Another great book out there is called The Great Game of Business. And at the end of the day, you can read that, the only way to be secure is make money and generate cash. Everything else is a means to that end. So if you are into philanthropy, if you are into giving back to the community, if you are into let's have a fun place at work, let's get the OBJ recognition for a great place to work, none of that happens if you don't generate profit and generate cash. The difference is that you probably as an owner understand that. How many of your employees understand those concepts? Typically, if I were to ask an employee back in a warehouse, how's the business going and how's the CEO doing? Well, we're making a ton of money and he's backing the truck up and loading the cash into it. Well, we know that's not true. One of the things that Jack Stack did, the author of this book and took over a company, was he made sure that he held accounting classes for every employee in his company so they understood what profit was and what cash was. You can't make a payroll with accounts receivable. You can only make it with cash. So there has to be some understanding, I think, in your organizations that understand how business works. Otherwise, you can't get them ownership thinking wise. So I know I've worked with Ken some. He's really focused on some things on the bonus plans, incentive plans, what have you, with ownership thinking. Has used some of these other tools. So why don't you just kind of maybe share a minute of that?
Sure. Well, you hit on a lot of great points. I mean, it really starts, though, with having the right people in the right seats. The best incentive plan in the world, if you don't have the right people to understand what you're trying to do, it's not going to work. But the education is key to making it work very well. I try to do it several times without having that key component and without sharing a lot of more information with my team than I do now. And that was a really scary part, was to be a lot more transparent, because as you said, if you don't tell them, they're going to make up whatever they think it's going to be, and it's probably a lot more than it actually is. So that educational component was key once you have the right people in the right seats. And it's got to be simple, and it's got to be understandable. It's got to be something that can be communicated every day, and everybody knows when they're going to get it and when they're not going to get it. So there's no surprise. That eliminates the entitlement factor. If the business doesn't hit the goals that you set, which need to be attainable but a stretch, if you don't hit the goals that you set out, then there's no incentive. You still get your paycheck, still have a job, but you don't have an incentive. And everybody knows that and understands that, because as soon as there's muddiness and somebody expects something that they don't get, it doesn't work, it falls apart. And then you write somebody a check, no matter how much it is, if they expect more, it's not going to be, they're not going to be happy. There's nothing worse than write somebody a check and they're mad at you. That's the worst thing in the world. So.
Glenn, I've worked with Glenn for probably 10 years now, and as you heard he said, he's got $1 billion under management with his clients. There's a lot of money to be responsible for. When we first got together, I think that number was way down. So I've really seen his company grow and prosper. And one of the things he's utilized is this EOS system, Traction. Many of you around the room are certainly familiar with it. Some of you have utilized it. But the thing he's really focused on in his company is bringing that core value thing, is to getting the team aligned so that everybody understands their swim lanes and they stay in them, but they also understand the value of having teamwork and core values. So why don't you address that just for a minute?
Well, first of all, thanks for letting me be up here. I'm not sure I deserve to be up here. I need to be over there learning with everybody else. That was my word, student. So, and thank you to all the speakers so far, because I'm jotting down notes, and now Eric gave me all this homework I got to go do. But I mean, but the whole point of these tools is you got to use them, right? And you can't step over them because you know there's so much goodness that comes out of them. And I think that, you know, it all started with being part of your group, your CEO group, and being around other bright people. You kind of learn to hang your head, say, I'm not as good as she is, I'm not as good as he is. Boy, I wish I had a little bit of that. And being part of those groups is extremely important to me, because we can take best practices and elevate everybody's game, and it's kind of like, and you can talk the same language, and you can't talk the language of a CEO to too many people outside of the CEO group, so that's valuable. Traction was an eye-opener for me, because it's the first book I've ever written that is a prescriptive, step-by-step process of running your company. Everything else is good to great, and all those things are inspiring, and they talk about little segments, but they don't fundamentally change your business. So I tried to implement it on my own, and with some success. I would say we were 25% more successful implementing it compared to where we could have been. And then after trying to do that, about last year, I actually hired a professional implementer to come in. We just started that process, and it's really been great. But I looked at my profits and my revenues, and they absolutely hockey sticked up as soon as we started that process. And I'm not suggesting that's the only process, but it's the introspection, the change that it drives that really made the difference in my business. And it's really hard, because I started my business in my middle age. Now I'm far beyond that. But as far as being able to change and everything, I needed something else, because I thought I knew quite a bit about business. And I had to sort of change everything and restart. And that was a catalyst. And it's been a journey, and we're nowhere near that. We're about to roll it out to all of our employees on the 16th of May. And I'm excited about it, a little bit apprehensive, but I feel it makes it a better place to work. And what it actually does is drives out all the people that shouldn't be in your company in the first place. And we all have a few of those in our closet. And it actually, implementing this actually makes the performers stay and the non-performers leave. I think that's the most valuable part.
All right, thank you very much. And again, it's been great watching you do what you've done. It's very inspirational. You walk into his company, and I mean, his company is engaged. His employees are engaged. Which leads me to the next one, is employee engagement levels. Perhaps you've seen this slide or read it, but Gallup does a survey, updated, with millions and millions of people, to measure the engagement levels of employees nationwide. And what they find is only about 30% of employees are what they call engaged. Now, what does engaged mean? It means that they have an emotional attachment to the company. They do over and above what they're asked to do to achieve the objectives that have been set and communicated to them. If they have a minute, they're not on the computer screen playing solitaire. They are thinking how they can do their job better and contribute more to the organization. That's engaged. At the bottom of the spectrum are those people that should not be there. They're the brotherhood of the miserable. They are the people that are a detriment to your organization. They are the people, when the 5 o'clock whistle blows, they are telling their workmates how crummy this company is, how bad the CEO is, all the negatives. Without fail, you need to identify and move those people out of your organization. Where you got to do the work is the 50%. That's everybody that comes to work, does a good job, but is not engaged as far as you would like them to do. If you can get that 50% to 40%, the 30% to 40%, you will get a significant uplift in the effectiveness of your company. Now, Gallup has a poll out there that you can do. If you've never done it, that's the website. We did it with Ken's company. What it is those 12 questions you see up there. They address 4 things. The first 2 address, obviously, do you know what your job is and you have the tools to do it? Do you have a crummy truck, or you can effectively deliver your job? The next 4 are really important because they measure recognition is the people in your organization being recognized for what they do. Recognition is the one single thing you can do more of to increase employee engagement. The next four measure culture. Does your culture, your core values, their ability to interface at work, does it align with what they're looking for? And the last two talk about, do they have an opportunity to grow and learn in your company? So what this has done, if you go online, you get $15 a head of an employee, and it's taken anonymously, and you get a report back that will measure each employee, not by name, but just by a number, as to where they rate in each one of those 12 categories, as well as an employee in total, against the universe out there. So, Ken, you've done that a couple of times. You might want to comment on that.
Sure. Yeah, so, similar to the SWOT, it's a tool. And what it allowed us to do is find some areas to try to focus in on. And as a leadership team, we could ask ourselves, wow, we thought we were doing really good here, but this is saying we're not. And it opens up a dialogue with the rest of the team, tell us what, where we're falling short, but also allows us to put some ownership back on the rest of the team. Because the power to create that great environment and a special place to work and do business isn't completely on my shoulders, and it's not completely on my manager's shoulders. It's on everybody's shoulders in the company. So it allowed us to kind of try to put some of that back on everybody and say, okay, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? And how can we do better? And it's been an effective tool. We've used it a few times, and you can't focus on everything at once. So what it allows you to do is kind of find those areas that you maybe need the most work on and focus in on it, and gives you a way to measure and get feedback, and sometimes most importantly just open up the conversation and communication with the team as to how can we do better every single day.
I would also comment that perception is reality, right? Sometimes as leaders of companies, we think everything is good. This can be a little bit of a wake-up call because it's anonymous, and people will be putting down exactly what they feel. And when you get back, now you don't kind of figure out who answered it low and get rid of them. You do not use this as that kind of a tool because you've totally blown the anonymity of the process. But I would strongly suggest you do that. It's a small investment. It's a wake-up call. It's a stake in the ground is what you need to do moving forward. Are you not doing enough recognition? Do your employees think they don't have an opportunity to grow and learn in your company? Do they not understand their job? So think about that as a tool. Okay, let's very quickly, you can, in your packet, these are here, and you can kind of measure yourself. I'm not going to take time to do this in the essence of time. But think about your role, first as a CEO, but as a leader of your company. How are you stacking up against those particular areas? Are you truly the strategist? And when I say strategy, I'm talking about you've got to get back to setting the tone of your company, the core values in your organization, the inspirational direction that you're making, that BHAG, or that big, hairy, audacious goal that Collins talks about, is it clearly understood and out there so that your company is following you and you're leading them to that ultimate goal. An ambassador, you're obviously the face of the company. You've got to be out there. You've got to be meeting new people. An inventor, finding customer pain and developing products and services, or a modification. Again, the SWOT analysis can be used for that. Big thing here is a coach. If you're the leader of your company, I think your interface with people and as a coach and as a mentor is probably the best thing you can do. Because you are looked at as the leader, and we spend more time at work than we do at home. So the leader of the company is absolutely important, and don't the old adage, manage by walking around, right? Understand the pulse of your organization and be a coach. An investor, I think the 10-year treasuries are now a little over 3% return. Take a look at your business as your investment. Are you getting more than 3% on your investment? Because you could just put it into a 10-year treasury and not worry about it. right? But, so think about that and stay active as a student of learning and leadership, you know, in professional organizations and to coming to things like this. So you're, you know, enhancing your leadership ability and your understanding and using tools. Okay, move from entrepreneur to a CEO. And again, I would just suggest you kind of gauge yourself against this. I won't go down every one on the list there, but I think some of the things are, you know, ego to humility. It's not about you anymore. When you started your company, it was about you. It was your inspiration, your left brain kind of visionary ideas. Now it's got to be about them. You've got to be that inspirational leader for those that are following you. Inside out thinking. This is again an example. You're here, you're getting outside information. If you stay in your organization and don't get outside of it, you don't start about thinking about on your organization. You kind of just get steeped, you know, the forest for the trees type of thing. So make sure you do that. And the bottom one is probably the hardest thing you will ever do as a leader. You start a company, you might have loyal people that helped you get to where you are. But the idea here, are they now 6s on a scale of 1 to 10? You've got to replace them with 8s, 9s, and 10s. And I think you experienced that. Maybe you just address it for a second.
I mean, this is the hardest thing, and because you've built up so much personal relationship, and that's where you have to draw the line. I think once again, the most important thing is to figure out what your core values and your mission are, and then judge everybody's will. Inside Traction, it's you gauge everybody inside your organization. First, you got to have them accountable, so you have to know what their responsibilities are, and that's got to be clear. And then you measure them simply 3 letters, GWC, which is, do they get it? You know, do they understand the mission? And are they aligned? Do they want it? Do they want to put themselves out there to accomplish the mission? And the C is, do they have the capacity? And some of that sometimes is with you. You didn't train them. You're not prepared. And I think getting back to this earlier point, which is, you know, when do you really have a business versus just an entrepreneurial zeal? And I think really the best way to judge that is to say, first of all, when someone leaves the office or someone's out sick or they're for whatever reason they're out of the office, does their job get delegated up or does it get delegated down? I would suggest you don't really have a solid business if it gets delegated up, because you need to build the fundamental strength under every leadership position. And I've had this happen in my organization. The other day someone was leading a staff meeting and they said, are you going to lead the staff meeting? And I said, no. Who's missing? And it goes under them. And so that idea of having 2 layers at every job, I can't tell you how many times I've kept somebody out of fear. What happens if they leave? And it's a wonderful feeling when you no longer have that fear in your organization, that no one is going to hold you hostage, no one's going to keep the 6 in your organization because you haven't trained and prepared for that 9 later.
You know, and if you do have 6s, 5s, or 6s, and again, you know, we're family, right? I know about their kids, I know about this. Those are hard decisions to make. But as you scale your organization and grow it, you should be bringing in 8s and 9s. And those 8s and 9s, what are they going to think of these 5s and 6s? It's going to degrade, you know, and it's going to reflect on you as the CEO. Why isn't that person taking action to increase what this person is not doing? So that's probably the hardest thing that it's the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my running companies, is to get rid of the people that you really like, but they were not up to contributing to the level that they should be. Just going to finish with this, and I know we get it with Ken's company, but the idea, there's a lot of behavioral tools out there. I know Valentree uses one. I've been using the predictive index. And so in terms of putting the right people in the right seats, it's important to understand their behaviors in terms of doing that as well. So just using the predictive index, how they segment all the groups, tools with DISC or Colby or you name it, puts things into 4 categories primarily. So the number one is the dominance factor. It says, does the role require an independent driver or a collaborator? From an extroversion standpoint, does the role require a people person or a things person? Sociable versus reserved. Patience. Does the role require flexibility and drive or stability and routine? And lastly, formality, does the role require structure, rules, procedures, or require more independent thinking and subjectivity? So those are important measurements, because if you put a person that requires a lot of structure into an unstructured organization, they are probably not going to be as effective. So use this. Now, I think the next one is, yeah, it's about fit. I'm going to give you just a quick example of how this works. These two guys are private equity guys that bought this Predictive Index some years ago. So one guy's the CEO, the other guy is the COO, or in traction terms, one guy is the visionary and one guy is the integrator. We separate them like that in that traction model. So if you looked at this and you got their resume in and you check their background, they look pretty similar, right? I mean, both of them are Harvard MBAs, both of them have graduated from significant universities, and both have had CEO and professional experience. So if this is all we did, kind of a coin flip as to which one of these fellows we might hire for our CEO or our COO. However, if we look at their profile, this is a half-a-day seminar, so I'm just going to give you a quick one. If we look at the B here, the B indicates, are they outgoing? Are they a people person, if you will? And you notice Dan is way low on the B. He's very reserved, where Mike is outgoing, the face. Well, Mike is the visionary and Dan is the integrator. If you tried to switch these roles with that profile, they wouldn't work very well. You'd have somebody that's very introverted expected to be the face of the company. It just doesn't work. And if we look, what D says is that I like structure, give me rules, I want to follow the rules, and and I get uncomfortable if I'm not following the rules. I want to know what I'm going to do. Well, you would expect the COO or the integrator to want that. If it's to the right of that midline, it means that person wants structure, expects structure, and demands structure. Look at Mike on the other side. He wants no structure. He wants to be able to improvise. He's out there making things happen. So if you reverse these roles, they would not be as good in the seat that they are occupying in an organization. So in addition to experience, education, reference checking, I encourage you to do some behavioral testing, particularly for key positions in your organization. A shameful promotion is that I'm involved with CEO Nexus. These guys are members, some others in the room are members, and it just talks about the things that we focus. If you look on the bottom of the triangle, those are the things we work on in our groups to improve, which then can lead at some point to a successful exit. So, and that's a good segue into Gary, who will just touch on some points about the exit strategy. Gary. Guys, thank you very much.
Thank you. Here you go, Ray. I just want to encourage you about this predictive index. It's literally a 5-minute exercise, and I had myself and 5 of our leadership team, Mike Hess was one, David Paparot, whom you met, and a few, and Jed Brennan. And the thing is, and I want you to share those results just real quickly, because as beautiful, complementary as all of our personalities were, at the end of the day, if there's not true trust in that formula, you can have lots of friction. Okay, but just if you would, because I thought it was fascinating.
Well, yeah, it was interesting, and I was talking to Mike earlier, and he said, man, you nailed me. I mean, how did you know that was me? I only answered, 65 questions, and that's me. And it was true of everybody else. I mean, I sat with Jeff yesterday and went through the various folks that did it. And this thing nails people's behavioral drivers. It is who you are and how you are at work. And some of the other tools do it as well, but as you can see, that the presentation of that is kind of interesting. So don't forget that piece of it, again, because it's dead on, and it can open up two things. Number one, are you hiring properly for the right seat? But more importantly, have you opened up that communication inside your company using these tools so that you understand how to communicate with somebody? That A is not going to communicate with that D as well as he may communicate with another A, right? Because there could be a clash, or a person that's not that's low on the wants to be more collaborative, is not as sociable, and you've got a very dominant CEO. They're not going to raise their hand. They're not going to say anything. So you then become known that you can communicate better, because most problems in life, as the old Cool Hand Luke movie, some of you remember that, said, what we have here is a failure to communicate. And that's most of the problems, and if we can use tools to improve our communication skills with each other, we just do things better. So, go ahead.
Okay, I'm back, and I've got a short amount of time, so I'll probably be less interactive than I would like to be, a little more informative. So I know you've been hearing a lot about what do we need to do to build our business to exit. Eric talked about how everybody keeps thinking, well, I'm going to exit about 10 years from now, and then if we come back in 2020 and talk about it, well, yeah, I'm still going to exit about 10 years from now. So it's really threefold. When am I going to exit? What value do I need my company to be at to where if I sell my company, I have enough money to now I can retire and live off the income it generates, and then how am I going to get there? So the first part, I think I agree 100% with Eric. We need to figure out when do we want to exit. If I'm 60 years old, and if I want to be done working when I'm 67, I've got 7 years to get there. What value do I need to build my company to? Say for example, my company's got $10 million in revenue. I've got EBITDA of $1 million. In our industry, the multiplier somebody's in a bias for is 5 times EBITDA. If all other things are going great, which I'll get into a little bit of those drivers, $5 million, if I retire, I have Glenn Griffiths from Raymond James. Glenn says, hey, the stock market normally grows at 7% a year. If we get you 7%, you're going to get $350,000 a year. Glenn probably is going to be able to get you more than that because he's so amazing. But can I live on $350,000 a year? No, I'd like $1 million a year. Well, that means I need to get the value of my company up to $15 million when I sell it, so 7% equals $1 million. Well, how do I get there? How do I grow it? Do I grow it through acquiring other small companies? Do I have enough cash flow? Do I have a strong enough company that I can get investors from outside, or preferably bank loans to do that? Do we open more locations? I think Deji, I talked to him, it's like, yep, they're opening new locations at Nightlight Pediatrics in Jacksonville. They've opened in Melbourne a couple years ago. We grow the value of our company through opening new locations, or do we grow our revenue at our current locations? Whatever it is, we know that we need to get to this value in order to sell our company and to get the money that we need to provide the income in retirement. I'm going to go through, we've got on our screen, we've got on our screen a bunch of valuation drivers. I don't have a lot of time, so I think one of the most important things, especially if we're going to be selling our company and we're not going to be there, do we have a team? Do we have a decision-making team in place that's going to be able to carry on if we're not there? Right now, how many people here can go on vacation for a month? Raise your hands, and your company's going to run smoothly if you're not there. So I don't see a lot of hands. So if you want to be able to sell your company, that's that's obviously going to be a factor. Now, if you sell to a competitor who has a team in place, you may not need to have quite as strong of a team, but you're going to have to be retained for a certain period of time. If you think, well, I want to retire in 7 years, and you sell in 7 years, you may be on board for a couple years, transitioning the relationships with your customers, the relationships with your vendors, and in having a sort of a knowledge dump so they can get up to speed on what you're doing. If you're not selling to a competitor, if you're selling to a strategic buyer who wants to get into your industry and isn't there, or an investment company, you're going to need a stronger decision-making team on board. Number 2 is a clear identity and capabilities vision. Oh, I don't see Ken here. I was in actually touch base with Ken a little bit. So at World Class, when Ken first got into it, they were a company that was installing locks at a lot of hotels. Then as time went on, they had more recurring service revenue from repairing locks, and now they've gotten to where that is the bulk of their business, and that you heard him talk about changing the name of the company from World Class Installations to Electronic Locksmith, because the focus and the identity of their company has changed. So we want to make sure we understand the identity of our company and what we're doing, and we go in that way. Number 3, huge, a compelling business plan. Do we know our business model? Do we know what we do? Do we know our strengths and weaknesses from the SWOT? Do we know where our financial position is? And are we communicating this across our company in a manner that others on board know what we're doing? Are we forecasting the future? Are we planning for exit? And then are we revisiting this plan? Just because we get a business plan in place, we've decided this is the vision of our company, this is our mission, this is our plan, we've got a lot of input, everybody at the company understands it. Okay, we don't just let it sit there for 5 years. We come back and we revisit it because things change, people change, situations change, and so the business plan needs to change with that. Number 4, and this is huge, effective financial systems and controls. If we don't have financial systems in place that really tell us how our business is running financially, what our margins are we allocating overhead properly, do we understand what at our different geographic locations, why some are succeeding better than others, maybe due to demographics. You heard early on, we can't open a new Publix unless we've got 10,000 people in that area. I used to be CFO of Florida Eye Clinic and Laser Company, and that was the same thing. There needed to be 10,000 people for a new optometrist to service that area. So in Central Florida, it's pretty much similar. In Orange, Osceola, and Seminole, if 60,000 people a year move in, or our population grows by 60,000, we need 6 more optometrists to serve that population. If 10 more optometrists start serving the population, then they're going to have a hard time hitting their revenue and their profit goals. We had that happen one time. One of the doctors at Florida Eye Clinic came in and said, we've got to open a location in Claremont. We're not there. Magruder's there. Mid-Florida's there. There's another guy. We need to be there. When we looked at the population, we looked at the number of optometrists, it was already overserved. If we went there, we were going to be in a market that had too many optometrists already. Then we looked at the growth potential, maybe the most optimistic over the next several years, and it was like, if we had an optometrist and nobody else did, about 5 years from now, we're going to be right where we need to be. And if other people had optometrists, we're going to be still in an overserved situation. So we need to, do those types of things and understand. We need financial controls also. If we don't have policies and procedures in place for what, as you guys know, to get bids if we're over a certain amount, et cetera, we're going to shoot ourselves in the foot. I'm going through this really rapidly because I have a limited amount of time. Number 5, recurring revenue, profitability, and cash flow. Probably with the clients I deal with, the most important thing is that they understand their cash flow. And I don't think I've walked into a client yet that has an effective cash flow forecast, where they forecast out at least 8 weeks, preferably week by week for a quarter, and then month by month for the remainder of the year. a new client I just started on last week, and I'm working with the controller so that we can get the reports to the CEO, so that the CEO and the finance committee can make decisions, because they don't have a cash flow forecast that basically takes into account their AR, their projected revenue, when it's going to come in, their accounts payable, their recurring monthly expenses, when they hit, and sets it all out so we can see, maybe there's seasonality in there. Are there going to be times where, because of seasonality, we're up and down, or because of cost of completion, if it's a construction contract? Is there a time where we may, even though at the end of the year it looks like it's going to be a great year, are there times where we may have to hit a line of credit? No, we don't have a line of credit. I need to call Phil up and get a line of credit, because it looks like we're going to be short a couple $100,000 in this low period in the summer, even though we're going to recover in the fall. So there's a lot of things like that. Cash flow is extremely, extremely important. Focusing on long-term success, I think we just saw yesterday Disney and Walmart both made some corporate moves to focus on their long-term success rather than their short-term success, and the market punished their stock by dropping it down a little bit, because the market tends to like Netflix and Amazon when they're focusing on growth and long-term. Hey, these companies are new, they're younger, they're focusing on growth, we like that, we're going to move their stock up. Established companies like Walmart and Disney, who are being smart and focusing on long-term success, if it isn't going to show up in their next quarterly profit, they maybe get punished a little bit. So those stocks are down a little, and they're probably going to bounce right back up. But focusing on long-term success, scalable systems. If we have policies and procedures in place in all the different areas that we need, we can open a new location, we can move to a new geographic territory. If we don't have them in place, we'll probably stumble and we'll miss something. We may not get our permits in time. We may think we're going to open. I've seen where a restaurant thought they were going to open, and oops, they didn't get their liquor license. And so they're already, oops, we're going to open in X amount of months. We need to get it. It's not available till like 3 months after your expected opening date. So big boo-boo there. Balance, culture. I think a lot of times when we think about culture, we think about employees, and are we giving them some time off? Are we having a beach outing? Are we doing things like that? Culture talks a lot about how do we get things done in our company. What are we doing across different functions? Clients that I have that do it the best, they seem to have leadership team meetings and full team meetings so that everybody knows what's going on. We get in there, here are the things on our calendar that we're doing. Here are the conventions we're attending. Here are the meetings we're having that are driving business. So people in the company understand what's going on to drive our business and to move it forward. Also, everybody gets to go around and communicate with each other items they're doing in their departments. It might be business development, it might be marketing, it may be operations, it could be IT. There's a lot of things that are affecting other departments, and it gives you a chance to make sure that other departments know what you're doing and other people in your organization know what you're doing, so things don't get missed that affect other people. And then they come up and say, hey, I didn't know about that. If I'd known about that, I would have done this, and because of that, we missed this opportunity, or it caused this to happen, which hurt us financially or hurt us operationally. God, I wish I'd known that. So that's a lot of times what culture talks about, even though we think it talks about the fun stuff that we do as a group. That's important too. Customer diversification, customer responsiveness, and customer loyalty all go together in making us successful. Diversification, we talked about it a little bit earlier. The more diverse our customer base, then the less dependent we are on a certain customer. If a certain customer has a huge amount of our sales, they can come and pretty much dictate to us, you know what, I know we've been buying that from you, and we bought 1 million of them for $10, and it was 10 million in sales, but you know what, we can only pay you $9.50 now. And so you just lost $500,000 in sales because you don't want to lose the whole $10 million. Customer responsiveness. Most of the time, this is because there's a problem. A customer, oops, we forgot to order this and we need it. Can you get it here quick? Do you guys have it? Or it could be, there was a problem with this order when it came. What can you guys do to rectify it? And whether or not you can do it 100% or not, it's important to show the customer they're important and you can do what you can. I worked with one company when I was the corporate controller nationally, and we had a system at the time just called Positively Outrageous Service. And basically what it meant was when we goofed up, we had to do something way beyond what they would expect to make up for it. Because when we goofed up, that leads to them telling other people, man, I'll tell you what, this company messed up bad, but here's what they did. You know, sort of like when you go to a restaurant and there's certain restaurants, you go there, you're expecting to get your food, you know, you made your order, you ate your appetizers, okay, where's the food? And then pretty soon, uh-oh, the food isn't here. And then pretty soon they just come by and say, hey, we had a delay in the kitchen. Everybody here can have a free drink because your food's a little slow. They know you're sitting there and you're thinking, where's our food? And they proactively come out and already offer you that. Or I've had ones too where things have gone wrong and they'll offer you a free dessert, etc. But it's part of their corporate response to be proactive. It really isn't a response. It isn't reactive. It's proactive. They already know that, hey, if we have a delay in the kitchen, this is what we're going to do. And this is our company plan. And we're going to do it everywhere. If we've delivered the appetizer and our meal's supposed to be there in 10 to 15 minutes and it's 20 to 25 minutes, we are going out and telling them they can have a free drink. That's our plan because we want that customer loyalty, and when they leave, that we want them to tell their friends, hey, you're not going to believe what happened. You know, it was only like the meal was 10 minutes late and they came around and gave everybody a free drink. These guys are awesome. I recommend you go there, and the food was great too. So those are the things that we're trying to build on. Number 9, intellectual property protection. I don't know how many of you have patents or trademarks or copyrights and things like that. Just to be aware, you know, not to let those things lapse. And also, if you're thinking about getting copyrights or trademarks or something, to be ahead of the game and make sure that anything, if you're thinking about a new trademark, a new copyright, are we going to have a website, you know, making sure that if you decide, hey, I'm going to open up a brewery over here, I'm going to call it the Valencia Brewing Company, because, hey, it's popular, and students will go, I don't even know if there is one. Somebody could maybe look this up, and you might want to get the trademark or copyright. But anyway, you might want Valencia Brewing Company, Valencia Brewing, Valencia-Brewing Company, Valencia-Brew, whatever, all the ones, because somebody might be able to sneak in there and get something that's similar to what you get. So the key is thinking about those things ahead of time and not messing up. I mean, I think PGA.com or org, I forget what it was, it's not the Professional Golf Association, because the Potato Growers Organization out in Idaho got it before they did. And the last I heard, they would not sell it to the Professional Golf Association. I guess the Professional Golf Association didn't get the number high enough. But the great thing is, anytime anybody goes to look for PGA, they go to their website. So the Potato Growers of America gets more visits or gets more people that are aware of what they do because of that. So again, I guess any questions? We covered a lot of material. Any questions on anything, or it's a lot. I guess so. Again, all I can say is on exit strategy, figure out when you're going to do it. Like Eric said, start determining what value you need to be at. And then get your financial house in order, and then figure out how you're going to grow there. Eric?
And one recommendation I'd make, hire a professional to do this for you. There are people who do this for a living. We're all very good at what we do individually. We're not necessarily good at planning our own exit from our business. Get some help on the outside. I did, and I was very happy I did.
Thank you, Eric.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Believe it or not, we are right on schedule. I'm passing out some things to go to the right and the left here. Quickly, this is a letter of endorsement, which I will send you an electronic copy of. One of the things that we've been asked to do from Valencia College is to get the endorsement of business owners in the community regarding a software development degree. Next one on tap is a supply chain management degree. I'm going to be going up to Tallahassee later this year to actually deliver these letters. So you can amend it any way you want and send it back to me, to my attention. Secondly, there is a way, there's a set of documentation here about getting interns from Valencia College. CEO Leadership Forums has a branded program now called CEO Leadership Forums Executive Internship Program. Scholarship winners of our program, which the first group of 50 will be announced in July, will become eligible to you for use inside of your companies. There's a lot more detail about that. Also, I did pass these out. I would ask that you fill them out and leave them at your place, okay? And actually, I also did mention that there were value driver assessments that folks filled out prior to being here. And I'm passing them out. Brandon, you're over here. Where's Jose? Is that here?
Sitting right there.
Todd? Todd not here. Okay. Well, if you didn't fill one out, we're going to be reaching out to you to fill them out because, as I said at the very beginning, we want to gather these for a couple purposes, future content as well as course development for the college. At this point, what I'd like to do is I'd like to invite John Morgan, who is President Bush, back up the stage to close us out. I want to thank you for your time. This has been a lot of fun, and we're going to end this piece on strategery just the right way. John.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Jeffrey. This awesome team of CEOs and business developers and planners and strategists who care about you. It's a beautiful thing. If I'd had, a good exit strategy, we wouldn't still be over there.
Amen.
And so, I wish I'd have been at this class, and then maybe I wouldn't have said mission accomplished so soon. Although the mission here today has been thoroughly accomplished, and I have had several of what I like to call, and this is a visual exercise, take something and make it into something else. This is just 20 cents, but if I throw it over there, see, it becomes a paradigm shift. So hopefully you've had a few of those today. I love you. I appreciate you. You can find me at GeorgeBushImpersonator.com and soon also DonaldTrump.com.
Oh, good.
And I love you and appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming. God bless.
Thanks, John. I will say that we have some future events, and they're in your booklet. Also, John's contact information, as well as everyone else as part of our group, is in your packets as well. And one last thing that I did mention is the predictive index assessment, which takes 5 minutes, which is so powerful in the graphical results that you get that will help integrate and synergize your teams. Ray is a certified predictive index person. If you want to have one done on the top two people in your organization, send us a note. He will run them, and we'll have a little coffee chat once that's done. So I encourage you to take advantage of that. At this point, safe driving. Thank you for your time.